Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fiercely debated question. How exactly does the United States decide who gets government jobs? Now, I know, that might sound like a dry administrative detail, but trust me, it's actually a high-stakes battle for power. It's a battle that literally shaped the foundation of American democracy. And as you'll see, it's one that still impacts us every single day. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at who gets these jobs, unpack President Andrew Jackson's spoils system, explore the shift from caucuses to party conventions, weigh expertise versus accountability, and finally, look at character, trust, and education. Let's jump right into Section 1. Who gets government jobs? Okay, to really grasp this, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a newly elected leader. Imagine you've just campaigned your heart out and boom, you won class president. Now you face a pretty massive dilemma. Do you fire all the old club leaders and give those shiny new positions to your best friends who helped you win? Or do you keep the experienced people around, even if they voted for your opponent? You want loyalty, obviously, but you also really need people who actually know what they're doing. Which brings us to Section 2, Jackson's spoils system. You see, this wasn't just some hypothetical high school dilemma. This exact scenario played out on a massive scale under President Andrew Jackson. He championed what became known as the spoils system, basically rewarding your loyal supporters with government jobs. The name actually comes from the old saying, "To the victor belong the spoils." In other words, you win the election and you get to hand out the power, the titles, and, the paychecks to your biggest fans. To back this whole thing up, Jackson pushed a concept called rotation in office. He made the argument that if people stayed in government jobs for way too long, they'd form this out-of-touch, permanent insider class. By constantly rotating ordinary, everyday citizens in and out of office, he firmly believed he was keeping the government highly responsive to the actual people. Well, as you can probably guess, this sparked a massive debate. On one side, supporters argued this system fought corruption. They felt it ensured no one got too comfortable in power, making the government truly representative. But on the flip side, critics raised some massive red flags. They warned that replacing seasoned experts with political loyalists would absolutely tank government competence. They argued that treating federal jobs like party favors was practically an open invitation for grift. Moving right along to Section 3, caucuses to party conventions. Right alongside the spoils system, the actual way candidates were chosen was completely transforming. Before this, nominations were decided in elite caucuses. Picture closed-doors, smoky rooms where political insiders just handpicked their candidates. But soon, parties shifted to these vibrant, energetic party conventions. This was a total game changer. It brought far more representatives into the mix, introduced printed platforms so voters actually knew what they were voting for, and established local committees to keep everyday citizens engaged year-round. That leads us into Section 4, expertise versus accountability. So this new era of mass participation forced Americans to weigh a pretty huge trade-off. When a new administration clears house to hire their loyalists, the short-term effects are, they're turbulent. Institutional knowledge just vanishes overnight. Efficiency drops as all these new workers scramble to learn the ropes. However, and this is a big however, the political alignment with the new leader absolutely skyrockets. That means the government is, theoretically at least, completely unified in executing the agenda that the people just voted in. This brings us to a really crucial point, the accountability argument. Proponents of the spoils system point out that, hey, if your government job is guaranteed for life, you might grow complacent, right? But if you know for a fact you'll be fired if the public votes your boss out, you are highly motivated to execute the public agenda responsibly. Basically, the fear of losing the job breeds accountability. Of course, those intense debates about competence didn't just fade away over time. Later generations realized that, sure, while democratic participation is vital, we still really need capable experts managing the nation's infrastructure. This growing demand for reform eventually led to the creation of civil service exams. Non-political jobs finally gained protection, establishing a new system that was designed to perfectly balance genuine merit and qualifications with political accountability. And finally, Section 5, character, trust, and education. Because at the end of the day, no matter what system a government uses, the source material highlights that it ultimately comes down to character. The curriculum cites a foundational idea from Luke 16:10, stating, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." This perspective argues that public service is fundamentally a public trust. And honestly, systems can only do so much if the individuals running them lack integrity. This whole concept connects directly to the philosophy taught in the Heroes Mart Academy Godly Learners series. Their curriculum emphasizes that education really must intertwine with biblical morality. They argue that just being smart isn't enough on its own. After all, a brilliant politician or a highly educated civil servant who lacks a moral compass can easily use their intelligence to make corrupt choices that actually hurt society. From this viewpoint, true reform has to start from within. The curriculum points to Romans 8:6-7, which promises that keeping a spiritual mindset brings a profound peace of mind. The core idea here is that when leaders operate from a solid foundation of spiritual and moral groundedness, power is handled completely differently, moving away from selfish gain and moving toward genuine, authentic public service. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a huge question to ponder the next time you turn on the news: turnover or expertise? Which is more important? Is it better to have fresh, loyal faces who are highly responsive to an election? Or should we prioritize long-term stability and expertise, even if those officials are pretty insulated from voters? It's the exact same question Andrew Jackson faced, and you know what? It's one American democracy is still trying to answer today. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring.